Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the channel of The Alchemist. And I'm Grady. Let me welcome you again. Today, I wanted to do this short video as a tribute to the Reverend Jessie Lewis Jackson. I think that the governor, let me commend him, of the state of South Carolina for standing on the right side of history and allowing Jesse Jackson's body and his family to lie in the state of South Carolina. Um, that has a redemptive quality in it, in that the South is doing some very positive and progressive things. And so we especially grateful to the governor of South Carolina for allowing the family to bring Jesse back home uh, and to lie in state for uh, the world to see him as great of a prophet, advocate, and a member of the beloved community that he was and he is. And so I wanted to make a tribute to Jesse today. And let me tell you why. In spite of all Reverend Jackson's frailty, Reverend Jackson uh, faced death. He took up the torch, uh, Dr. King's dream, to continue his work, to continue to bring justice and equity to the least and to the last and lost, and particularly the struggles of the African American people uh, as an oppressed group of people. And that involved not only us, but all of the world's peoples. For right and righteousness, Jesse stood for, just as Dr. King did. And Jesse was, Reverend Jackson was quite an advocate and did a lot of progressive things after the passing of Dr. King. And he really began to engage um, the community, the city, state, nation, and world. In 1972, he really began to engage the forces that would hinder those things uh, from people who had earned a right, especially African American people who had earned the right, shed their blood, uh, never received reparations or anything for their work. Who knows of a democracy where people work and don't get paid? Well, the descendants of slaves experienced that in this country. We experienced the worst human act of atrocity that the world has ever seen. We were considered non humans. It was stated by the dominant culture that we had no souls. And this gave a license to the dominant culture to treat us as property and trash. And so chattel slavery was one of the most horrific human experiences and tragedies the world has ever seen. And Jesse picked up that mantle for Dr. King to try to bring some equity for the descendants of slaves and people of color. And so he faced death. And because of that, I love him and will always be grateful for it, along with him and Dr. King and many others who gave their lives. Um, and we know, in spite of his frailty, that God was with him, because the scriptures teach that you have passed from death unto life when you love the brethren. And Reverend Jackson put his life on the line. And I don't know about many leaders today who are willing to die for people, especially people of African descent, uh, which is the case in our case. The world is waking up to who we really are as descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, and particularly us being members of the tribe of Judah. So this is a rude awakening. Um, and so we thank Reverend Jackson for giving his life for us. He faced death. And the second thing is he produced a family that became advocates for the people and people who stood for American democracy like their dad did. Reverend Jackson produced two sons who were congressmen and who are one, uh, well, who are congressmen, and one got into trouble, but he is running again. And these things are very important. Um, it appears that not many people uh, are standing with democracy in the legislature today, in the House and in the Senate and in the White House. It almost looks like there is some kind of democracy has been weaponized from the White House, and it's showing up in the Congress and in the Senate and in the Supreme Court. Uh, and I just thank God that Reverend Jackson has two sons that are Congress people and who will be standing up for American democracy, because it appears that our three branches of government has abandoned democracy. And we're living in perilous times here. And so I thank God Reverend Jackson has two sons that are Congress people, uh, to show this demonstrates his commitment to democracy. And democracy is frail, and sometimes it looks as if it's only people of color who are really taking a stand. Uh, I know we have representatives of the dominant culture, but I mean, this weaponization is actualized in all three branches of government, and so uh, hatred is at its highest level. Uh, we have all kinds of groups and hating on Jewish people, on people of African American descent, people of color, and all the different groups are being assaulted at the highest levels our government has ever seen and recorded. And so these things are of grave concern, and we really need advocates. We really need uh, godly people to take a position and to stand for justice and equity. Otherwise, uh, this concept of the rule of law in democracy, it's dissipating as I'm speaking to you. And so our nation needs desperate prayer for our leaders, starting with our president. There's a desperate need for prayer for our president, and we need to pray that that our president, if he is going to put the people of God in danger, there is a divine accountability he will answer for. And so we need to pray for him and all of his leaders and the Supreme Court justices and all three branches of government and local, national, international leaders, mayors, governors, representatives, state, local, council people. They all need our prayers. And Reverend Jackson stood for these things. He gave his life to see that democracy would stand at every level in our government, local, national, international, and even around the world. How we've supported other nations standing for truth and justice and righteousness. And so we thank God for what Reverend Jackson has done in spite of his frailty. And we all are frail, but God was with him. And we're praying that God would comfort his family, especially his wife of 65 years. They have been a wonderful family, a wonderful American family, in spite of all of our struggles. And we thank God for it. And so I wanted to give tribute because it gives me some comfort as well, knowing that as a man of God, the risk that it takes for us to stand and to speak truth to power, to hold power accountable, is very risky. And we're fully aware of that because it's cost many great ones their lives. And so today, with much joy, I give this tribute to Reverend Jackson. And yes, I've had the privilege of chauffeuring Reverend Jackson around, having the privilege of being an ordained minister from the Antioch Baptist Church North under the leadership of Dr. Cameron Alexander. And just so happens that the Rainbow Coalition's region director, Mr. Joe Beasley, had a personal hand at Dr. Alexander's leadership, had a personal hand in giving me some civil rights training and some accessibility and exposure at Antioch. And Mr. Beasley introduced me to Reverend Jackson, gave me the privilege of spending time with him. In fact, there was a moment when Reverend Jackson and James Carville, who was chief of staff for President Clinton, were being chauffeured in my car with state troopers to several colleges. And boy, those were some intimate moments that we shared together, and listening and watching Jesse and James in dialogue and debate about what's necessary for America, what's necessary for people of African descent and people of color. Those are moments that bring me joy. It bring me a lot of tears. But I just thank God that I had a chance to meet Reverend Jackson, experience Reverend Jackson, and watch Reverend Jackson, and be encouraged and inspired and full of joy by Reverend Jackson. And this world, this United States of America would not be what it is today without the work and the sacrifice that Reverend Jessie Lewis Jackson made to this country in spite of his frailty. He did great work.